Brought up the tough topic of grudges, or maybe we can just go more like unforgiveness, forgiveness. If you missed the sermon, go watch the sermon. It's on our website, app, all over. And what I talked about was when you and I both get when we get hurt, and we begin to circle around that hurt, and that becomes unforgiveness, bitterness, a grudge, and we're like, what do I do with this? Well, one thing I didn't really go after, I thought would be worth this time right now. So here's the misconception that I think we have. We think that forgiveness requires reconciliation. To be less wordy, we think if we forgive that person, we have to go back to being best friends. We have to go back to being maybe what we were, or we at least have to go back to normal. We have to go back to full trust, 100% level trust. It's all, and I think what happens is if we think that in order to forgive someone, everything has to go back to normal exactly the way it was, we just flat out won't forgive. I mean, because you're like, I'm not going that direction. And I want to give you some guidance because I think it's helpful that the relationship doesn't have to go back to exactly the way that it was. Here's a quote from Andy Stanley that I think is helpful, and then I'm going to read you some scripture. In the shadow of my hurt, forgiveness feels like a decision to reward my enemy. Almost that if we reconcile, it's like I've given my enemy a gift of, hey, it never happened. And I don't want that. It's like, no, I want them to know that this hurt. And so we don't forgive. And so we don't reconcile. And it all just stays the way it was. And we spin on that wheel. So he finishes this. But in the shadow of the cross, forgiveness is merely a gift from one undeserving soul to another. So I want you to consider this, that maybe forgiveness or the grudge that's going on in your heart right now, stop thinking about, will you guys get back to normal? Stop thinking about how much you don't trust them anymore, because you don't trust them. That's just the way it is. You got to deal with the grudge, the unforgiveness. Colossians 3:13, make allowance for each other's faults. Oh, I wish more people would post that on social media. Make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. I want to point out, it doesn't say, and trust everyone who's hurt you exactly the way that they want you to trust them or the way that you used to trust them. It didn't say that. But it's time that you and I stop holding everything against everyone, that we start to bring grace into more conversations. You don't have to be BFFs. But if you're a Christian, you do have to go after forgiveness. So maybe this is some freedom for some of us, where you can forgive someone and not fully trust them. You can forgive someone and go your separate ways. I didn't talk about it in the sermon, but I think that if you study the life of Jesus and disciples, you'll see that forgiveness is powerful, needed, significant. You need it in your life, but don't lump it into everything else in life. Otherwise, I think you won't do it. So there it is. Think about who you have a grudge with and work on forgiving them without thinking it's got to go back to the way it was.